What's going on, guys, in the Works Media, and we are going to do another weapon showdown today because the last one was so popular. A lot of you guys asked to see some different classes. You know, they wanted to see some engineering classes, and a lot of people requested the A-91, and a lot of people requested the G36, and I was like, alright, that's perfect, because these weapons are two weapons that are almost identical. But there's some key differences that make me prefer one over the other, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And we're playing on console, and I know a lot of you guys are like, oh no, not console, but you know, I like to mix it up. I play on both systems regularly. I do prefer the PC, so don't get butthurt too bad. But we're playing on console just because I was playing in a live stream with some people, and I was having some good games with these, and I was like, hey, this would be perfect for a weapon showcase type thing. And the A-91 is a very, very highly used weapon. That and the G36. They're both really, really popular because they're probably the two best engineering weapons since they've nerfed the SCAR. Now, I want to point out that these weapons are identical in terms of damage and almost identical in terms of recoil pattern. The only difference is the G36 has less recoil to the right, which means that the recoil pattern on these are going to be a little bit different. And I'm going to put the gun stats in the description like I always do, so you guys can go in and look and kind of see the recoil patterns on each of these guns. So the G36 has less recoil to the right, which means overall it's going to have a more predictable recoil than the A-91. Granted, the A-91 has less upward recoil, which makes it a little bit easier to stay on target at some of the longer ranges, but I would say I would really give the edge to the G36 in terms of recoil, because it's a much more moderate rate of fire. It fires at 750 rounds per minute versus the 800 that the A-91 fires at. So that makes it a lot easier to stay on target, especially at longer ranges. You know, by statistics, I would say that the A-91 blows the G36 out of the water. But to me, the G36 just performs a little bit better as an overall weapon. And the fact that the recoil is more of a kind of like a little short circle versus an upward climb makes it a little bit easier to stay, like, if you're trying to pop somebody who's just got their head poking over a wall. And I also prefer the 2-round burst variant on the G36, because you can go in the 2-round burst on the G36, where at the A-91 you can only do fully auto or single fire, so there's an advantage to the G36 in that department. But damage-wise, these weapons do almost the same. Now, if I was going to choose a silenced weapon, now there's where we get tricky. Excuse me. The silenced weapon that I would choose would actually be the A-91. Now, the silencer reduces recoil a little bit on these weapons, and it makes it a little bit easier to stay on target, I found. So if I'm going to be silenced, I'm definitely going to go with the A-91. I do not like the G36 silence. You've seen me use it in the past, and I've said that I'm not really a huge fan of it, and I stand by that. The G36 silence just isn't my cup of tea. If I'm going to be using the G36, I'm going to be using it unsilenced with the red dot and the grip like you see me using right here. Whereas the A-91, I mean, it's pretty usable silence. In fact, I almost prefer it with the silencer. If you see me running the A-91, you'll often see me running it with the silencer. So in the long run, it really just comes down to, what do you prefer? Do you prefer a weapon that performs better with a silencer, or do you prefer a weapon that's better, just, you know, overall a better weapon at longer ranges? It really, like I said, preference, guys. I prefer the G36. I always give the edge to the G36. Even though statistically the A-91 is better, since you get that extra 50 rounds per minute. I've just found that the A-91 just eats through ammo a little bit too much, considering that it takes a lot of bullets to kill at range. That makes it kind of difficult to take out targets at long range, because you often run out of ammo before you can actually kill the person. So that's why I like the G36. It's a little bit easier to conserve ammo. It's a little bit easier to stay on target with the more moderate rate of fire. I found that 750 is a really, really good rate of fire, because not only do you conserve your ammo, it's really easy to just paint that target with that ammo. You're making sure your shots are getting on. Whereas some of the faster rate of fire weapons, you miss a lot of the shots because they just, you know, the recoil is a little bit more unpredictable, and it's just harder in general to take out multiple opponents. And multiple opponents are an important part of Battlefield, because oftentimes you'll run into a squad. So the G36, I would say, is the overall, you know, weapon of choice if I'm going to be an engineer, with the A-91 being a pretty close second. But I give the edge to the G36 just because it's a little bit more versatile than the A-91. The A-91 does struggle at long range. So, you know, sit down, analyze what you think that would be best for you. If you're a long range player, by all means, use the G36. But if you consider yourself a very aggressive player, if you want a weapon that has a high rate of fire, and is going to kill opponents really quick, then go with the A-91, because both are really good choices. But like I said, the edge in my book, G36. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what weapon you might like to see next face off with each other. It doesn't have to be in the same class, but you know, don't be too crazy. Like, don't do L96 versus like an M240. But I will see you guys next time. Peace.